Sem C. Story time with Trailbot. What are we doing? Journey to the Center of the Earth, Part 16 for us. Okay then, what's this drive all about? Oh, we putting around a little Duck Creek village of Utah, and we gonna just kind of roll around and check out the mountains, and we kind of inadvertently dip into an area that we think, oh, this might be kind of nice development, and it's super developed. So it doesn't take us but a couple of minutes to figure out that we're in the wrong spot. But let's just talk about this book now, this Journey to the Center of the Earth. Harry got all caught up in the excitement of the thing, because all the crystals of the lava and everything, he was getting, and all of a sudden he was so enthusiastic and on board. He's onward, my boy, onward. It would have been far more correct and appropriate expression had he said, "Let us slide," for we were going down an inclined plane with perfect ease. The compass indicated that we were moving in southeasterly direction. The flow of lava had never turned to the right or the left. It had the inflexibility of a straight line. Nevertheless, to my surprise, we found no perceptible increase in heat. This proved the theories of Humphrey Davy to be founded on truth, and more than once I found myself examining the thermometer in silent astonishment. All right, let's take a peek. Oh, right, okay. I missed the best part of the whole thing there while I was had my nose down, and oh boy, I lost my spot already. All right, okay. But yeah, that was the little bit of Duck Creek village there. Boy, it sure is pretty up here. And there's of course, a bunch of ATV rentals and stuff. That's basically their entire income is tourism, right? We're not going to have mining. Can't have mining. Okay, so that was the Duck Creek village, and I believe we went in there and purchased something. Anyway, okay, now nevertheless to my surprise, silent astonishment. 2 hours after my departure, it only marked 54 degrees Fahrenheit. I had every reason to believe from this that our descent was far more horizontal than vertical. As for discovering the exact depth to which we had attained, nothing could be easier. The professor, as he advanced, measured the angles of deviation and inclination, but he kept the results of his observations to himself. About 8 o'clock in the evening, my uncle gave the signal for halting. Hans seated himself on the ground. The lamps were hung to fissures in the lava rock. We were now in a large cavern where air was not wanting. On the contrary, it abounded. What could be the cause of this? To what atmospheric agitation could be ascribed this draft? But this was a question which I did not care to discuss just then. Fatigue and hunger. Oh, here we go. We turn it in here and it's like, oh yeah, check this out. And then I'm thinking, I'm looking at some of these reader boards here and going, well, maybe they got plots of little acreages for sale. This is kind of close enough to around LA and Vegas that you might get that kind of thing. But it turns out it's all that and more. And you'll see here, and we get up here and we're like, oh boy, yeah, don't know, you know, there's your first sign right there. It's like, what, a half dozen garbage cans. And it's like, whoa, geez, you know, there's some people coming in and out of there. All right, so here we go. Fatigue and hunger made me incapable of reasoning. An increasing march of 7 hours had not been kept up without great exhaustion. I was really and truly worn out, and delighted enough I was to hear the word halt. Hans laid out some provisions on a lump of lava, and we each supped with keen relish. One thing, however, caused us great uneasiness. Our water reserve was already half exhausted. My uncle had full confidence in finding subterranean resources, but hitherto we had completely failed in doing so. I could not help calling my uncle's attention to the circumstance. "And you are surprised at this total absence of springs?" he said. "Doubtless, I am very uneasy on the point. We have certainly not enough water to last us 5 days." Be quite easy on that matter," continued my uncle. "I answered for..." Oh boy. Hey, hang on a sec. I'm trying to get one eyeball looking at this drive here. Okay, yeah. Now let me regroup and we'll figure it out. All right, here we go. "Doubtless, I'm very uneasy on the point. We have certainly not enough water to last us 5 days." "Be quite easy on that matter," continued my uncle. "I answer for it we shall find plenty of water, in fact, far more than we shall want." "But when?" "When we once get through this crust of lava. How can you expect springs to force their way through these solid stone walls?" "But what is there to prove that this concrete mass of lava does not extend to the center of the earth?" "I don't think we have yet done much in a vertical way." "What puts that into your head, my boy?" asked my uncle mildly. "Well, it appears to me that if we had descended very far below the level of the sea, we should find it rather hotter than we have." "According to your system," said my uncle. "But what does the thermometer say?" "Scarcely 15 degrees by Reaumur, which is only an increase of 9 since our departure." "Well, and what conclusion does that bring to you?" inquired the professor. "The deduction I draw from this is very simple. According to the most exact observations, the augmentation of the temperature of the interior of the earth is 1 degree for every 100 feet. But certain local causes may considerably modify this figure. Thus, at Yakutsk in Siberia, it has been remarked that the heat increased a degree every 36 feet. The difference evidently depends on the conductibility of certain rocks in the neighborhood of an extinct volcano. It has been remarked that the elevation of temperature was only 1 degree on every 5 and 20 feet. Let us then go upon this calculation, which is the most favorable, and calculate. Calculate away, my boy. Calculate away, my boy. Nothing easier, said I, pulling out my notebook and pencil. 9 times 125 feet make a depth of 1,125 feet. Archimedes could not have spoken more geometrically. Well, according to my observations, we are at least 10,000 feet below the level of the sea. Can it be possible? Either my calculation is correct, or there is no truth in figures. The calculations of the professor were perfectly correct. We were already 6,000 feet deeper down into the bowels of the earth than anyone had ever been before. The lowest known depth to which man had hitherto penetrated was in the mines of Kitzbühel on the Tyrol and those of Wittenberg in Bohemia. The temperature, which should have been 81, was in this place only 15. That was a matter for serious consideration. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. That's the end of chapter 15, I guess. Where is... Okay, let's take a look. We got to take a look. Let me transfer my eye attenuating devices so that I can get the proper ones on. And there we go. And all of that just to say, oh, yeah, we still just driving around the mountains. It's awfully pretty, though. Chapter 16, The Eastern Tunnel. Oh, I remember this one. It starts to get exciting now. Before we just kind of setting it up. All right, here we go. The next day was Tuesday, the 2nd of July. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, we resumed our journey. We still continued to follow the gallery of lava, a perfect natural pathway, as easy of descent as some of those inclined planes which, in very old German houses, serve the purpose of staircases. This went on until 17 minutes past 12, the precise instant at which we rejoined Hans, who, having been somewhat in advance, had suddenly stopped. "At last," cried my uncle, "we have reached the end of the shaft." I looked wonderingly about me. We were in the center of 4 cross paths, somber and narrow tunnels. The question now arose as to which it was wise to take, and this of itself was no small difficulty. My uncle, who did not wish to appear to have any hesitation about the matter before myself or the guide, at once made up his mind. He pointed quietly to the eastern tunnel, and without delay we entered within its gloomy recesses. Besides, he had entertained any feeling of hesitation, it might have been prolonged indefinitely, for there was no indication by which to determine on a choice. It was absolutely necessary to trust to chance and good fortune. The descent of this obscure and narrow gallery was very gradual and winding. Sometimes we gazed through a succession of arches. Its course was like the aisle of a Gothic cathedral. All right, let's take a break here. Oh, right, yeah, we was checking out this other little boondocky spot I knew about, and yeah, of course, a lot of these spots where they have these trailheads and these big snowmobile parking areas and stuff in the summertime turn into parking areas for the construction equipment, the highway construction equipment. So there was a no-go on the boondocking in here, but didn't stop us from going for a little hike and doing all that kind of thing. Taking the dogs out, and yeah, you know. Okay. Arches, cathedral, Gothic cathedral. The great artistic sculptors and builders of the Middle Ages might have here completed their studies with advantage. Many most beautiful and suggestive ideas of architectural beauty would have been discovered by them. After passing through this phase of the cavernous way, we suddenly came about a mile further on upon a square system of arch adopted by the early Romans, projecting from the solid rock and keeping up the weight of the roof. All right, I guess we're just gonna spin back around and go back up the hill. Oh no, we're gonna do a little snooping. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I remember there's a whole, this whole area up here was very, very interesting. It was a very interesting little bit. I'm gonna have to see if I can make my way back there. It really is up there. And then you got, you have those national parks that are so close, so good and bad. All right, keeping up the weight of the roof. Suddenly, we would come upon a series of low subterranean tunnels which looked like beaver holes or the work of foxes, through whose narrow and winding ways we had literally to crawl. The heat still remained as quiet The heat still remained at quite a supportable degree. With an involuntary shudder, I reflected on what the heat must have been when the volcano of Sneffels was pouring its smoke, flames, and streams of boiling lava, all of which must have come up by the road we are now following. Almost, right? I could imagine the torrents of hot, seething stone darting on, bubbling up with accompaniments of smoke, steam, and sulfurous stench. Sulfurous, no, can't say it. Sulfurous. Oh, there it is. Sulfurous. Wow. Stench. Only to think of the consequences, I mused, if the old volcano were once more to set to work. I did not communicate these rather unpleasant reflections to my uncle. He not only would not have understood them, but would have been intensely disgusted. His only idea was to go ahead. He walked, he slid, he clambered over piles of fragments, he rolled down heaps of broken lava with a earnestness and conviction it was impossible not to admire. At 6 o'clock in the evening, after a very wearisome journey, but one not so fatiguing as before, we had made 6 miles downward toward the southward, but had not gone more than a mile downwards. My uncle, as usual, gave the signal to halt. We ate our meal in thoughtful silence, and then retired to sleep. Our arrangements for the night were very primitive and simple. A traveling rug in which we rolled, a traveling rug in which each rolled himself was all our bedding. We had no necessity to fear cold or any unpleasant visit. Travelers who bury themselves in the wild and depths of the African desert, who seek profit and pleasure in the forests of the New World, are compelled to take it in turn to watch during the hours of sleep. But in this region of the earth, absolute solitude and complete security reigned supreme. We had nothing to fear either from savages or from wild beasts. After a night's sweet repose, we awoke, fresh and ready for action. There being nothing to detain us, we started on our journey. We continued to burrow through the lava tunnel as before. It was impossible to make out through what soil we were making way. The tunnel, moreover, instead of going down into the bowels of the earth, became absolutely horizontal. I even thought, after some examination, that we were actually tending upwards. About 10 o'clock in the day, this state of things became so clear that, finding the change very fatiguing, I was obliged to slacken my pace and finally come to a halt. "Well," said the professor quickly, "what is the matter?" "The fact is, I'm dreadfully tired," was my earnest reply. "What?" cried my uncle. "Tired after a 3-hour walk? And by so easy a road?" "Easy enough, I dare say, but very fatiguing." "But how can that be? We all have to do is to go downwards." "I beg your pardon, sir. For some time I have noticed that we are going upwards." "Upwards?" cried my uncle, shrugging his shoulders. "How can that be?" "There can be no doubt about it. For the last half hour the slopes have been upward. And if we go on in this way, we're almost done. If we go on this way much longer, we'll find ourselves back in Iceland. Oh, let me just put a mark on it, because I'm pretty sure we're getting close back to, oh no. Oh yeah, we're getting close. There's big old Ronnie there. We're getting close back to camp here. So we'll take a little look at the camp boondocky site. It was a real nice spot right here, and I made the mistake of taking just the best spot there, and that is not the thing to do. Anyway, all right, thank you so much for coming along, and we'll see you next time. Is the hammock worth it? I believe I have asked this before. Yes, it is. Samsy. And we'll just leave you a little bit of Big Old Rosie. Thank you, Big Old Rosie.